right, and here we are. Fantastic. Naomi, thank you so much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. This is a second edition of Hitting the Keynote, talking about how to communicate complex subject matter, no matter the subject matter. Today it'll be cybersecurity, to the layperson. So that is to say, anybody that wasn't sucked or drawn into this cybersecurity industry or whatever profession that you're in. Could be a physicist, could be a mathematician, a psychologist. How does one communicate the things that we got drawn into naturally that we might be an unconscious competent about, and communicate those to people who, let's say, don't have a love for cyber or for physics or whatever it might be? So, Naomi, thank you very much for being on the show with me today.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Eddie. I'm so excited. I love your shirt, by the way. I didn't know this was a fashion podcast. So yeah, happy to represent the other side of poor fashion.
Fantastic. Well, I tell you what, we must be having a mind meld on fashion, because as you noted earlier, you're wearing red, I'm wearing blue. So red team, blue team. We might get into that a little bit later for those that don't know what it is. Exactly. So, well, why don't we just do a little bit of getting to know each other? Because in fact, this is Naomi, and I've heard of Naomi through a very dear friend, James Azer, that runs an amazing podcast, Cyber Hub podcast. What are the other podcasts that James has got? He's got the Tech Town Square that he does with me. You do one with him called Cyber Thursday.
Oh, CISO Thursdays.
CISO Thursday, and then he has his practitioner brief. So there you go. Always love to give good people a shout out. And so I got to know Naomi through James, and this is actually the first time we're talking live.
That's right. Happy to be here, everyone. I love cybersecurity. I love teaching it. I've been in cybersecurity since 2006, and tech in general since 1999. Yes, I am old. And I love everything about it. There's so much to learn. There's so much to do, and you can never know everything. And so the whole idea of constant learning and constant curiosity, that's what drives me every day. And my current mission really is to teach people that it's okay to not have a broad or deep technical background in order to get started in cybersecurity. It is a common myth that you must be a technology professional before you can even do things in cybersecurity. I think it's a myth because I have hired people and I have trained people and I've mentored people who have no technical background, and yet they are thriving in cybersecurity. So happy to talk about that more, Eddie.
Well, you know what, and that was the route I got, because I studied sport medicine for 2 years in university and bailed out of it. And then I took an English teacher's certificate, much more kind of my academic standards, let's say. And then I ended up in cybersecurity. So I missed the dot-com boom. You got that joining in 99. So that's pretty cool. I joined in 2002. I got into technology. I was still teaching English up until about 2002. And case in point of what you just said, Naomi, I had zero experience in technology. I'm just a gadget geek. That's what I call myself. I'm not an engineer. I'm just a gadget geek. I had a GPS on my bicycle when I was young that was like this big. Before GPSs should have been on bicycles, just so I could measure. I went 3/4 of a mile today, right? So that's what I mean. I often say that, you know, our career chooses us, not the other way around. Right? You tend to lean into things that you're interested in. So as a gadget geek and as somebody who was a police cadet and I loved the military and served in the reserves in university, you know, I guess cyber and IT for the gadget geek made me kind of fall into this industry. And I also think that once you've been in it for a year, you pretty much know what everybody else knows, because it's changing so fast.
That's true. That's true. And it's almost a bad thing if you stay with one side of cybersecurity or technology, or you're really pigeonholed into one thing, because you don't get the chance to raise your head and then look around and see what else is out there. I love the fact that we're constantly evolving, Eddie, and we have so much to learn from each other. And I know it sounds cliche, but we are a team. We play together. We win together or we lose together. And right now I want us to win. I want us to all feel the power of ourselves and our contributions and our common understanding of things, and really just win against those cyber criminals.
Well, and the win is so important in cybersecurity because, you know, while Naomi and I typically work in industries that protect large enterprises, there are still human beings in those enterprises that are victimized. It's not just, you know, well, the insurance policy will pay for it. It's people's actual credit card details, their healthcare details. Even worse, it can be identity theft, which takes years to get out of. So there are few industries outside of critical infrastructure being banking, all types of finance, healthcare, cybersecurity, utilities that keep our lights on, where communication is so important that it can even result in life or death. So to the core of this podcast series, how does one communicate a complex subject matter, in this case cybersecurity, Naomi, to the layperson, which would be every employee in the organization outside of technology?
Yeah, that's right.
Right, which is the majority.
It's everyone but cybersecurity professionals.
Yeah.
Well, I like to tell stories. First of all, stories are just wonderful, and just methods of telling truths and ideals and just general teachings, right? And you can see this throughout history. Someone like Jesus or any other real, prophet, spiritual leader, they have an ability to reach the core of the human experience through telling stories, and people relate to those stories. They're able to tap into that side of the person. They're able to empathize and relate to them through very visual means, and a way of using words to evoke those feelings of saying, hey, yeah, this applies to me, right? And so you get to that personal side of things where you can tell a story and say, hey, this happened to my neighbor, right? Or this happened to my brother or my father. My father got hacked, this is what happened to him, and it took him years to recover and stuff. So you tell those stories and people say, hey, you know what? I had that same experience, and I had that same thing happen to me. And those feelings of just saying, hey, I relate to your story, and now I'm ready. I'm primed to learn. I want to know more about how cybersecurity affects me, because I understand that it can happen to anyone. Happen to me. It can happen to you, right? I want to know more. How do I protect myself? How do I protect my family? So telling stories to evoke those emotions and relate to that person, then you're ready. Then that person is ready to learn more. And that's the point where you want to get to.
Yeah, so let's do this live. Let's try to break down a story. So as a CISO, 100% agree. And there's a wonderful book by Joseph Campbell, Hero with 1,000 Faces. It's basically about the innate wiring in our brain to understand narrative as opposed to ones and zeros, facts, right? I like to say facts tell, but stories sell, right? You want to sell an idea, tell a story. So okay, as a CISO, what do you think is the biggest pain when it comes to users understanding what you need to keep the company safe? And kind of let me set it up for the audience here. So take any of the major banks. They got a lot of money. They've typically got tens of millions of dollars worth of cybersecurity. Some have hundreds of millions. I'm not kidding. Jamie Dimon at the last World Economic Forum boasted that JP Morgan Chase has $1 billion investment in cybersecurity. That's a stretch, but maybe. I do know some organizations firsthand. I know them that have several $100 million worth of software renewal licenses and hardware specific to cyber. All right. Try attacking that, bad guys. It'll take you 100,000 years of personnel hours to break into those engines and algorithms. Much easier to put a phishing attack on an employee, right? You just get a video of a fat cat tripping over a lazy mouse. You send people the link, and they'll spread that video around the whole company, right? Because who doesn't want to see something hilarious like that? So let's pick a subject matter that might be a real pain for CISOs to try and communicate to people, Naomi. What do you think that might be?
I like that one, just layer 8, right? How do you get the individual to care about security enough? How do they make it their responsibility to make sure they don't get phished or smished or any of the issues? Right. So I think it's a great topic, right? So how do you use your awareness training? I think that's great. Usually it just means, hey, I have an hour-long course. That's a video I have to watch. And some people just actually don't watch it. They just let it run and go in the background, do something else. And that constitutes their user awareness training for the year. How do you evolve past that? How do you get past that? So I think, again, bringing it back to making it personal, telling stories, making it fun, making it accessible. I did something with previous companies where October is National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. I'm sure you know this, but a lot of cybersecurity professionals and leaders don't take advantage of really the opportunities that presents. And so for that month, I just have fun things like we have a lock-picking village, right? We have speakers. We bring in experts across all different realms of cybersecurity and physical security and the police and the FBI. And they come in, they do talks, and we bring in the pizza and the salads, right, for the healthy folks. And we have them talk to us and we listen. And it's very fascinating. And people just pay attention to that stuff. Oh, the FBI is coming. We have to listen to them. Right. And they tell the stories of the crime and, the poor lady, she lost her life savings due to elder fraud. Right. And those are the stories that evoke emotion. And we remember that. And then we bring those lessons back to whoever we're talking to next. And I love that. It's a great opportunity. We do things like Slack contests where now you're creating a GIF that makes fun of security, right? I love doing that, make a GIF on security. And so just making it fun, making it accessible, giving it some life, and not just having this boring security awareness training that everyone has to go through. Yes, for compliance reasons. Can we do better? Yes, we can. We can make it fun. We can make it engaging, make it personal, tell stories, just make it relatable and personal. I think that really hits home and it's more impactful.
You said something really interesting there, lockpicking. So one of my big beefs in university, Naomi, it was crazy. So my wife's an auditory learner, right? So she can sit in a lecture like this and just like, wait. Yeah, I got it. Let me ace the exam now. Auditory learners, right? It goes into the ears and it just stays. That ain't this guy. And then you have visual learners, somebody who has to look, read, right? And see things. I'm a kinesthetic learner, which means somebody who has to touch and feel stuff, right? Now, you can still get a kinesthetic experience through puzzle solving online, right? Now, lockpicking, that's kinesthetic learning.
Yeah, I'd agree.
That's really interesting. Yeah. So and maybe you did this on purpose, but certainly what you stumbled across was, okay, for the people that are kinesthetic learners, let's really drill into them about security. And yeah, okay, they're learning to pick a lock. That's kind of not the point. It might be fun. It's just a fun exercise, right? You're not expecting them to pick their locks at home or doing anything like that at the office. But what you are doing is they'll remember that. And that's the point, isn't it?
That's right. And you also show them how easily security can be breached. If you show them this is a lock, it's not actually security. It's the mirage of security. And if you show them, they make these locks that are clear now. You can actually see inside them. You see the pins, you see the tumbler. And then when you pick a lock, you show them each thing, you're like, this is actually what it does. And the light bulbs just go off and their eyes get wide open. They're like, wow, security's it's just a mirage. There's nothing really holding us back from these bad guys. And then while they're doing the kinesthetic learning and they're doing the lock picking, that's when I'm talking in the background. I'm like, and by the way, this is what this means for cybersecurity, because the bad guys are always at our door and they're trying to break in and pick at our locks, right? And so at the same time, I'm doing the auditory. For the auditory learners, I'm talking through things. I'm showing them how it relates to cybersecurity. And there are some correlations, and it's very interesting how people learn. They love it. We had one lady who was able to get out of handcuffs that were tied behind her back, so her hands behind her back. And she was able to get out of handcuffs using a paper clip. And you want to try to guess how many seconds it took her, Eddie?
Oh my goodness. Because you're asking, it's obviously just a few.
That's right.
Wow. Really? This is the expert coming in, though, or is it one of your team members?
Oh, no. She was a brand new person to lockpicking, and it was her first time. I mean, it took her a few tries, but by the end, she was done in 8 seconds. So a very flexible person, by the way. I think it requires a level of flexibility, and just that hurts. So yeah, handcuffs behind her back, single paper clip, 8 seconds. And by the end of it, I called her my prodigy. So Emily, if you're listening, you are still my prodigy. I miss you.
Well, and here's the other thing that does to somebody. It gives them a victory moment in an industry which is normally quite patronizing, right? And what I mean by that is our world, when we live in cyber all the time, we can talk about stateful packet inspection and data leak prevention. And these kinds of things are intimidating to the layperson. And when I say layperson, I mean anyone that's just outside of our industry. Whatever they're doing, I'm a layperson to their discipline, right? I don't mean that as kind of something that they're not simply understanding. It's just, this is our forte. So I think what happens is, as users, employees are faced with complex things like technology, click here, line command, these kinds of things, they are reluctant to call into IT, to call into the CISO's department to say, hey, what about this email? Should I be clicking this or not? Because they automatically feel foolish. When somebody feels foolish, guess what? You have cortisol gets squirted into their system, right? So now they're not even thinking straight, because cortisol actually removes blood from the brain and the prefrontal cortex to the muscles for fight or flight, right? So you're not thinking this clearly. Giving somebody a lock picking, I'm doing this off the cuff right now, Naomi. This is actually really cool. I'm realizing it now. Giving somebody a lock to pick or handcuffs to get out of, and they can do it, gives them actually a dopamine rush, right? Because dopamine is I see a reward and I'm going to go get it. Makes you feel good. And when people feel good about cybersecurity, and this is one of the things, Ashley, we should talk about this too. I like to say to my customers, when was the last time you called into the department of the CISO just to say to them, hey, can we sit down for half an hour and just do a cyber hygiene check with me as an employee? Everyone says never. The only time they ever call is to complain, my machine's not fast enough, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Imagine you as a CISO had an employee saying, hey, can I have somebody just sit with me for half an hour, make sure I'm cyber safe? People are like, absolutely, right? But there's a barrier there because people are intimidated to call IT because we're a bunch of nerds, right? And speaking ones and zeros, and not you and me, but all of our colleagues are nerds. So what you're doing there is you're giving people a victory moment, having fun, and you're making friends, right?
Oh my gosh, making friends. That's something we're so poor at. Yes, I agree. Making it fun, make it human. I had this poor lady who had failed a phishing test, and she was so upset, right? So she comes up to me, up to my desk, and you should just see her face. She looked like she was about to cry. Her body language, everything else like that. She was just so shamed. And I could tell she had been pretty new to the company, I think maybe 6 months in, and she had come from a large corporation before that for years and years and years. And you could tell something happened in that previous life where she was very much shamed into this, where they were feeling that she was meant to be guilted into something. So she walks up to me and she says, oh, I failed the phishing test. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I just looked at her. I said, that's okay. Let's learn from this one. That's all right. I'm not going to fire you. Can't fire you. Let's just talk about this. That's all right. Right? So it happens. And the relief on her face, at first she was in disbelief because she's like, wait, I'm not in trouble. I don't require remedial training or anything. No, you're fine. I want you to be okay with telling me about the problems, because if you hide problems, it will make my life harder, and we will have breaches because I'm not a good enough people person. You're just going to be afraid of me. And so what we're seeing in cybersecurity is, I think the reason why a lot of breaches happen is because the business is just doing things that it wants to do. It doesn't want to involve security in the conversations that it needs to have with them, because they're afraid of the whole blame and shame and the whole thing of like, oh, they're just going to say no, they're just going to make my life difficult. I'll tell you, Eddie, I was listening on a call with a cybersecurity professional with their business folks, and I'm just listening in here. The cybersecurity professional was telling this person why they couldn't sign up for a SaaS product. Now, mind you, the SaaS product is pretty innocuous. It's just a little plugin that you can turn on in your browser, and it basically just lets you do polls on Zoom and things like that. And the cybersecurity professional was going on and on about compliance regulations, and the password minimum is not long enough, and the poor business person the entire time was just, but I don't understand. It's just a meeting that we want to do a poll on, and it's not even a meeting that is going to be recorded or anything. Like, it's a very basic meeting for our company. We just want to do a poll. And the cybersecurity professional is like, no, this is the rule. These are what we need to follow. We cannot go against this. We need a checklist of all these things. And the level of empathy just broke my heart. Of course, I could only listen. I wasn't able to say anything. But in my mind, I was slapping the person around and like, you're doing it all wrong. You're supposed to be helping the business achieve its goals. You're not there to say no. You say how. You say how, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to set a password minimum for ourselves, a policy of 15, 25 characters, whatever it is. Yes, the SaaS product might be 8. Yes, pretty weak, but we can do better, right? Let's have a policy. Right. Let's use a password manager that sets a rule that says 15 characters or more. Those are the kind of things that the business wants to hear. They don't want to say no. They don't want to hear no. The more they hear no, the more they're going to say, forget security. We're just going to do what we're going to do. Shadow IT every day. And they're just going to go off and do their own thing. And that's what security professionals do not want. We want to be involved. And in fact, a personal metric of mine is the number of conversations that security is involved in, or the number of times security is even brought up in a business context. So in anywhere across your organization, think of all the times security is even considered as part of a requirement. Are we considering fraud? Are we considering privacy requirements? Are we considering security requirements? If that is happening, and even better, if it's happening without the need of a security professional in the room, you are winning. That is security culture built from the ground up. Security is everyone's responsibility, and they know it. And that is how we know security culture is done well at that company. And you know for a fact that security is probably going to be better than a company that does not have that, right? And so you have eyes and ears of the security team, and it is now scaled across the business. Your centralized security team no longer has to do all the security things. It relies on the army that it has built and the security champions it has built across the business. That's what we need to do. And the only way you can do that is by building relationships and building trust with the business. And again, by doing that, you win. Everyone wins, and we need to win.
You've said so much there. There's so much to unpack. This is awesome. It reminds me of a tip that a friend of mine gave me in the utilities business a little years ago, back when I lived in Canada. He said, get a bunch of playing card size, like a deck of cards, but probably 10 of them in a box, right? Kind of like you would have, I don't know, Trivial Pursuit cards. And on each one is a cyber safety moment. And then make a policy that anytime 2 or more people meet, so they go into a boardroom to meet, they have to pick a card and read it. That's it. And so it's 60 seconds, 30 seconds. It's a safety moment. They just pick the card. Oh, that's interesting, and plop it back in the thing, right? That's a policy. And then that at least puts security into every meeting without the security person having to be there. All right, so nice little tip. It might work. I remember a while ago printing some cards to do that. I should revive it. But you mentioned, making friends, and we're so poor at making friends. I want to go back to that lady that was feeling remiss over failing the phishing test, because some people, you see, it's interesting, isn't it? It's about character development, because this beautiful human being came in in a humble state, feeling a little bit kind of like, oh, ouch. But some people respond in an aggressive state. Same problem, but they come, you know what, this is garbage. I don't like this damn plan, blah, blah, blah. But behind that, there's a human being hurting, embarrassed, upset that they failed a test that they just got training on. So they feel foolish. And some people will respond aggressively. I think it's on us, the cyber and the IT folks, to just kind of take that one on the chin and go, hey, you know what? It's okay. And let's befriend. Because like you were saying with your example of your colleague or somebody you knew saying, berating the business department, that's the character development that we need too, right? And I just got back from a meditation trip in Costa Rica, as a matter of fact, about a week ago. Yeah, it was epic. This to me is probably one of the more beneficial ways I've been able to manage aggressive people. I say aggressive, but people who are frustrated. There must be other ways to do this, I'm sure, but I suspect that that's what needs to happen. In order for our communication to be effective, we need to come from a place of centered calmness, right, as professionals.
I love that. I don't meditate as much, but even prayer, things like that really does help. I love that. And I wish we were all self-aware enough to know that that was effective. But unfortunately, from the anecdotal personal evidence that I have, and even though I've been doing this for 2 decades, I feel that we aren't quite there yet, Eddie. I don't think we are ready for that level of spirituality. People are probably like, I just don't have the time. I put out fires 24/7. I don't have time to meditate, even for 10 minutes. Yeah, so I do see a need for that. I just wish we had more time and the self-awareness to see the benefits of it. I will add too that the amount of friends making, I would say, is improving. I won't say it's completely terrible. The next generation of cybersecurity professionals, I can see already, has a level of emotional intelligence and empathy and awareness that the generation of my age do not have. So we're seeing an evidence in the culture wars that we see, right? It's really generational, where we have the older boomers, the Gen X's, they're really stuck in their ways where, oh, you just have to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. We don't need everyone to have equality. We just need enough. We don't need to be so PC for everything. There's a level of that, sure, but society is evolving where we do want to see equality. We understand the benefits of that, and everyone, a rising tide lifts all boats. And so the point of equality is to make everyone's life better. Nobody needs to needlessly suffer. And so the next generation of professionals, again, within that cohort of generational millennials and Gen Z, they see the benefits of that. And so they are bringing with them a level of emotional intelligence and empathy that, quite honestly, my generation does not have. And so I really love to see that. The problem is we're not giving these amazing folks a chance to learn. And we're saying, hey, you need that 5 years of experience, a master's degree, and a CISSP before you're even able to sit in the seat and, bow before us, right? So we're leading with that ego, and it's hurting us as a community. And I only see that being exacerbated throughout the years. And you'll just see this increase in need and this huge dearth of just information security professionals. They do not exist at the entry level folks, and we need to start training them so that they can be the next generation and the grizzly veterans in 5 years. Like, we need that.
So you brought up something I never thought about before, actually. That's true. When we're hiring people, it's like 5 years experience, CISSP, hit a bunch of other certs, undergraduate degree. Do we ever ask questions about how well you can communicate?
That's a great question. Right. It only ends up at the end, like, oh, is this person a culture fit, right? It's a culture fit.
That's right. It's like a tag at the end. And yet it's one of the most important things.
Right. It's like, can you do the job? Technically, great. Now let's just see them, make sure they're not, but the problem is a lot of the people doing the final, culture fits, right, are also not very self-aware, and they don't know their weaknesses. They don't have the people skills to actually recognize that they're poor at this. And so they're hiring people just like them. So you're seeing a preponderance of the same types of personalities that got us into this hole. And yes, we are losing the fight against cybercrime very objectively. There is data that proves this. We are experiencing breaches day in and day out. The problem that got us there, that, the level of emotional intelligence is so low, and those same people are hiring the people that are just like them. Oh, they're a culture fit. They're just like me. That perfect. They're perfect for this job. And so we're seeing the same thing happening over and over again. We're not giving those people skills, the human skills. We're not giving them a chance to show us what they can do. Like, infuse us with your way of thinking outside the box, bringing in that level of humanity into what we do, because cybersecurity is first and foremost about people. And we have forgotten that. And not only that, we have forgotten that in our daily jobs. And we also forget that we are not here to serve at the behest of corporations. Corporations are here to serve us. We do not serve the economy. The economy is here to serve us. We do not place the value for humanity at the level that we need it to do. In fact, we do the opposite. As long as you can act like a computer, the more you can act like a computer and a machine, the more money you make, and the more value you have to the economy, the almighty economy. It's when you act more human, when you're a caretaker, an artist, a volunteer sports coach, a stay-at-home parent. That's when we don't have the value, because you are not benefiting the economy. So when you're acting more as a human, you are worthless. You are worthless. And it feels wrong. Right. And so this is what I'm trying to tell people. We need to bring humanity back into cybersecurity. The fact that we haven't done that yet is the reason why we're losing.
Well, let's be human and say hello to Ali, who just joined and saying hello here. So
hello,
here you go. Let's be superhuman on that point. I want to drill down into that, because, it's okay. So let me just play a little devil's advocate for a second. We have an economy. If the economy collapses, we're all in trouble. So are we not here to serve the economy? What do you mean by flipping it on its head?
So money is a made-up construct, right? So think about before money was even created. It was a bartering system, right? We had relationships, we had communities where we did something and someone else did something for us. And we don't have this anymore. We're trading someone's labor and how much we think the market will pay for it and how little we can get away with paying for that labor in return for getting their labor. And so a lot of what we're seeing for the corporations are now the engine that is making this all happen. So the corporations are now the economy. It's not just the economy. It's really the corporations and the people with money and power who are subjecting the rest of us into working for them for as little money as possible. So you are right. If the economy collapses, great, but that will never happen. We'll always have somebody in charge because that's human nature. Human nature will want to control and have power. You've seen it through the generations. We are not great at equality and giving everyone equal say and equal voice and equal power because it's just the way we are. We want to be the dominant person, the species, the smartest person in the room. We want that. And so the fact that that will always be true means that somebody will always be on top of someone else. There will always be an oppressor and there will always be the oppressed. And right now, the oppressor is the corporations and the elites, the people with the money, and the oppressed are the people with the W-9s and the people who are gig workers and the labor force where we are stagnant in our wage growth. I think the last statistic I read was our wage growth is similar to 1920s depression wage growth, where all the companies have all this money. Did you know 3 people in America own 50% of the wealth in this country? That is disgusting.
It's pretty wild, isn't it?
Disgusting. And why are we okay with that?
Right.
We have enough money and wealth in this country. We have enough resources for everyone to be okay and not to have to take on jobs that are beneath them and to do things with their bodies. Like, we need to rethink humanity and what is the point of humanity. None of us can answer this question in a singular way. I think a lot of people are like, the point of life is to enjoy it and to make money and to have all these things. You can't take those things when you die. Where are you going? You're going into the same ground as Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. We're all going to die. We're all going to have the same 6x6 coffin or whatever. Sorry, that's the wrong size for a coffin.
Right. Some people, they might be fat autocrats. You got it right the first time, Naomi.
Apparently, I don't know my coffin sizes, but we have to think about what humanity means and why we are treating each other this way and why we let companies do this to us. We give the power to the companies. We are letting them control us like this. And why is that? Why is that?
I'm going to make some amazing observations here about communication, but let me get to this comment by Prashant. Yes, very nice point on humanity and technology supporting us rather than the other way around. And then Prashant, I've got a surprise for you, my friend. I don't know if I know you. I apologize if I do, but you mentioned about cyber safety moments at Enbridge Pipelines. It was actually Dion Dubé at Enbridge Pipelines that gave me that idea. So it was while sitting in the office of Enbridge in Edmonton, so probably that's where you are, that I actually got that idea. And case in point with qualifications, I mean, Prashant, look at your master's degree and all these other letters after your name, and yet here we are talking about humanity, and here you are chiming in on this being an excellent point. Now, Naomi, here's the observation from the communication skill set. You are clearly very passionate about that subject matter, right? I touched something that you honed right in on, right?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry about that.
And you've clearly thought this through. So, this is something you've obviously wrestled with. You were incredibly articulate and passionate about it. That's communication.
Oh, well, thank you.
Do you see what I mean?
I didn't even notice it.
Communication, absolutely. And Prashant, yes, I know you know him. So this is wonderful. So shout out to Dion. Let him know that he just made it onto this podcast. And yet you are in Edmonton too. Well, I escaped the -20, -30 in the month of April weather from Edmonton and Calgary. I was living in Calgary to come live about half an hour west of Manhattan. So that's where I am right now, slightly warmer. So yeah, that's, I think, key, right, is passion on a subject matter, something you love to do. So whoever's trying to give the instruction, whether you are also having tools for kinesthetic learning like lockpicking, whether you're giving somebody a 1-hour slideshow, I hope not too much, but they can be kind of good, right? So slideshows can become good. Whatever it is, it should be delivered with passion. And I'll tell you what, tell me if you agree with this, Naomi. I would prefer to see a rough video of a person as a thumbnail just talking, as opposed to a cartoon that is really kind of cool. And what I mean by the thumbnail of the person talking with passion like you just did, I think that comes across better. Now, what do you think? Do you think these cartoons and all these cool new slides, and people can spend $1 million on cybersecurity awareness training?
Okay.
But I don't know. It's not Hollywood, so it's not that polished. So it doesn't really grab our attention. I'd prefer to see a human. But what are your thoughts on that?
I've seen some pretty well done security awareness videos, and they're always funny. I think humor makes the best kind of training and teacher, and vulnerability also is a good one. I agree with you. I think cartoons don't do a great job. Again, the whole idea is to make it personable and to relate to the person, and the person's not a cartoon, right? So you need to have somebody speaking to them or with them and having a conversation. And the best conversations are always personal and the one-on-one conversations. If you can't do that, obviously, it doesn't scale all the time. And another great way is just to have an interview just like this. So you are now streaming a one-on-one interview with other people who can watch it. So you're still having the one-on-one interview, and you're talking through the personal issues of poor security hygiene and everything. And then everyone else is listening. So they're kind of just listening to your fireside chat the way it is now. And I think, I don't have data to back this up, but I think that might be the second best option. I think the worst option is if everyone was just mindlessly watching a video of someone just talking at them, right?
Yeah, 100% with you on this one. Learning is a two-way street, right? Back when I was an English teacher, if I just stood there, and this was old school, like, when I was in school, the teacher stood there on the chalkboard, and we all just like, well, and that was life. And this is what you did with kids back then. Today, my wife's a teacher, right? The educational programs, the BEds and MEds that they get, it's all about interaction. And some of the more progressive schools, actually, the kids do their lesson online and they come into school to do their homework. And what they mean by that is you can get the lesson by just sitting there and listening to the lecturer, right? So you can get that online, but you come into school to work out the problems. But this is the homework. This is the essay I'm writing. This is the math problem. Hey, teacher, I need help with this, that, the other. It's a two-way street. So think about how we do that kind of training with adult education in the workplace. It's just us regurgitating to people. Now, you got an organization of 60,000 employees, you can't do one-on-one interviews with everybody, obviously. But this, and I never thought about that before, is kind of interesting because on LinkedIn, we've got people participating, it streams on YouTube. As this podcast grows, more people, like what you do with James or what I do, people interact. So at least there's a slight two-way street in the education, right? People are interacting with us. They can certainly ask questions and be interested in this subject matter. But I think that, not just having a one-way conversation. Well, that's not a conversation, is it? It's just somebody preaching, right? At the end of the day.
Yes, and we all know how that works out. Sunday sermons. Yeah, gosh.
Yeah, right.
If you really want me to get fired up, let me talk about the evangelical church, Eddie.
Well, and this is my beef with conferences, right? We have some amazing conferences that we go to, but the real value is in the hallway talking to people. It's just like, what tips do you have? Or what are you doing? Oh, yeah, it's the networking, right? Sitting in the conference hall is good. Maybe not. But that's the point, right?
Yeah, we want that connection with people, make it personal, right? And so I agree with you. We need that connection. That's why we're seeing massive levels of depression and anxiety, is because in this pandemic, we were not getting that human connection. And yet there's plenty of people out there who are okay just being at home. But at some point, they're going to need human touch and connection, and just to speak to someone, because otherwise you are abstracted yourself away and you're no longer a person. You are now just a brain that sits there and thinks about things, and you're no longer an active participant in the world. And that's what humanity is really for. It's just to make the world a better place and to enjoy life. And how do we do that? By putting each other down, and to have some winners and a lot of losers, have people suffering for no reason. That makes no sense to me. We have plenty of wealth in this country. And yes, I am speaking about America and really the first world countries, but there's plenty of ways where we can help each other. And Earth is a school. I like to think about it that way. There's so many lessons to be learned that we can share with the generations ahead of us. So we can make their lives better, and they can fix the problems of previous generations, and we're just exacerbating them at this point. And I see the same thing at a microcosm with security is we refuse to see the lessons in front of us, and we are happy to just have the same problems, and we're happy to lose to cybercrime. And are we okay with that? No, I'm not okay with that. I want to win, Eddie. I don't like losing. I'm super competitive. I hate losing. I think it's just the worst thing ever. It makes me feel terrible. I'm like, why am I wasting my life trying to do something that I know is probably just not, it's pointless, right? That is the definition of insanity. It's just not a good thing for me. And my mental health is absolutely predicated on the fact that winning helps me realize my potential and the benefit I have to society. So I want us to win. I want everyone to be on the same team and to play together, but we do not do that well. We fight.
I mentioned earlier, that's right, that you get a dopamine rush when you win. Like dopamine is the goal-oriented, right, biochemical. We're chemical beings. And you mentioned a moment ago that, you know, it's all about friendship and connection, being live and engaged with each other. People have been home for so long because of the pandemic. So talking neurochemicals, oxytocin is another one, not Oxycontin, that's a bad drug, oxytocin, right? Somebody got that mixed up when I was talking about it before. I love this kind of stuff. I just find it fascinating. Oxytocin is a naturally occurring neurochemical in our brain that we get from human interaction. We get it a lot from hugging, right? It's called the love hormone, right? You hug somebody, you get an oxytocin rush, right? You win at something, you get a dopamine rush. Now, when we do that, oxytocin is so again, hugging, but also you see another human smile, right? Okay, you actually get a tiny little bit of oxytocin. This is a good thing, and it ends up empowering us. Right? These are empowering chemicals, and you can't help but feel great when you have oxytocin. There's a great TED Talk. I wish I could remember the lady's name. She's a Harvard professor, and if you did a TED Talk with Superwoman pose, it would come up. It's probably one of the most popular TED Talks. It was certainly in the top 100, maybe in the top 50. And what this Harvard psychologist discovered, they did some experiments where young graduates going into job interviews. Now, some of them, they told you to go into the job interview normally. That's your control group, right? So 20, let's say, that they measured, whatever the statistics were. Others, they told them to sit before the job interview with folded arms. That's it, just sit with folded arms. And others even, the Wonder Woman pose, hands on hips, and pace around with a heel strike, a little bit of a heel strike. Now, here's what's interesting. Control group, fine, would have what you would typically expect as far as their success winning the jobs. People who went in like this won less of the opportunities, right? This is a closed, this is a miserable, this is an sort of an unhappy posture. People who were doing this felt empowered. They were bold when they went into the interview. Really interesting. She's the same person that brought up a study where they had candidates simply take a pencil and put it in their mouth this way, and others this way.
Okay.
And then mark who's happiest. Guess who are happiest?
Oh, the smiling. Yeah.
Life is so simple at the end of the day.
It really is. Oh my gosh. And we're complicating things so much. I feel that, love is just not complicated. Love is just the most simple feeling, and everyone needs it. And that's the thing. We're missing the point. And when I say humanity needs a mission statement, it really just needs more love. Like, I know it sounds super 1970s, like hippie kind of talk, but love is so simple. Love is like the most simple thing. And everyone needs it. So the more kind we can be, the more we can treat each other with respect and treat each other like we would like to be treated. That's just showing love and empathy. And that's what we need to bring into cybersecurity. We lead with our ego. We lead with the whole idea of we need to be relevant and smart, and we need to be the smartest person in the room, and we need to make sure everyone knows it. So that isn't working for us, everyone. We are losing. Why not try something else? Why not? Maybe I'm wrong. Right. I hope I'm not wrong. Right. But I think the idea is to now move the needle just a little bit more towards the empathy and the relationship building and winning hearts and minds for security, because you need this business to understand that we're on their team, that we are playing the same game and we're fighting the same fight. We need them on the same team as us, because when they know that, security is scalable, security is everyone's responsibility, and we all win. That's it.
It's beautiful. And let's get to Kim's comment here. She said, yeah, you said it. Let's get back to in-person conferences. People need to see people, and they're very burnt out with the virtual. You know, and of course, Kim runs the FutureCon conferences that are absolutely fantastic. I'm a big fan. So, of course, we need to get back in person as soon as we can. Something that, so I was speaking with Brian Medina, who wrote a book called Brain Rules. He is one of the world's foremost authorities in neuroscience today. He's going to be on this show at some time in the future. I think in July, I've got him booked. Now, Brian said to me that they did a study, this was in November, after 9 months of basically Zoom calls. And what they found was that because of the up close kind of eyeballs, what our neuroplasticity does is basically says, we are in an intense conversation. Right, this is too intense for us because we're so close, right? Because typically, if people are being a little bit combative, they come into the screen, right?
Personal space, yeah, personal space.
Right. Nose to nose dudes, right? Bunch of orangutans trying to show off and be all macho. They come really close. So when cameras, and you and I, obviously, we do a lot of these shows, so we're set a little bit further back. But some people are like this, right? And you see a lot of faces like that. You actually get cortisol. So this is what Brian was explaining to me. Now, cortisol is the biochemical you don't want. Cortisol kills us, as a matter of fact. This is why people have heart attacks, is because we're constantly, in traffic, honking the horn, having people up close like this, all of this constant cortisol, and yet we're not actually doing the fight or flight. We're not burning it off by running from the saber-toothed tiger, right? Or by engaging in battle. So where does the cortisol go? Well, it actually stays in our system for a prolonged period of time, and that actually deteriorates our health, right? There's a lot of disease that comes from just a byproduct of cortisol. Cortisol kills us, right? Testosterone specifically with men. Anyway, so yeah, no, it's this is all communication, right?
That just opened my eyes to so many things.
Is that right? Well, what's interesting is what do they say? And I'm going to make up the statistic, but it's something like this: 30% of communication is verbal, right?
I think it's less than that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah,
And then the rest is tone and posture, body language, inflection, all those things.
Neurochemical.
Yes, everything. And humans are so fascinating. We're so complicated. And that's what I love about it. It's just technology is boring. It's easy. It's static. It's zeros and ones. It's black and white. I love enabling the business and balancing risk with security. I love that. That's challenging to me. And then you throw in people and the politics and feeling egotistical today, right? How do you dissolve that feeling, right? I find that just so challenging and interesting. And that is where I am in my career right now. I care more about the people side of things. I still care about technical, but the challenge now for me is just, how do I influence? And yes, there's a bit of social engineering involved here. I will say that. And a bit of like sociology, psychology, psychopath. But I will say I enjoy that because it's so variable. It's so different. And having a growth mindset, I will say, allows me to see that there's room for improvement for myself. I don't know everything. I am not an expert at everything, right? So I want to be better. I want to learn, and people bring this energy that I'm just like, yes, I need more of that. I need to figure you out. You're a puzzle. And when I figure you out, I'll move on to the next person or whatever. So I love it. And that person will change again. It's hilarious. And so I love that. And that's, again, cybersecurity is about people. When we don't understand that, we need to win hearts and minds for security. And the only way we can do that is to be better people. Be better people. Have people skills. Be a better human. Yeah.
There's a, you mentioned that people essentially have an automatic thought process, right? So our neuroplasticity is like grooves in a dirt road, and there's been a horse and buggy, right? A cart just constantly digging that groove out. As a matter of fact, that's why train tracks are the width they are, because it's the size of two horses and the wheels that would go down the road, and they just dug deep ruts. And so they laid train tracks and created train to be that width. Absolutely, right? After establishing America in horse and buggy. So I look at those deep ruts, and neurons that fire together wire together, right? That's what they say in neuroscience. And so you have these automatic responses. So that beautiful lady that came and rather sheepishly said, "Hey, I failed the phishing test." those neurons are wired together with her. Humility. Some people might be wired together in a more combative sense, and so they come out aggressive. And this is where you were saying it's fascinating to understand people, because same problem, different manifestation of behavior from them. But we have to essentially kind of connect around that challenging behavior, see through it to the human being that needs love and attention and caring and strengthening and empowering, whether they're coming across as aggressive or as humble.
I've learned so much just being a parent. I've learned how to do this with little children. So I know you're a parent also. So the idea is to reach that inner child and say, it's okay. You can be not scared anymore. I'm not going to fire you. It's okay. So once you calm down that fear and that instant, like, oh, I'm just going to be fired or whatever, like they realize that you're there to help. And that it's the same across the business, not just phishing tests, but everyone understands you're here to help and you enable the business. You're a service for the business. Then they start opening up to you and they share with you and they ask you for advice and guidance. And then you can give them the implementation and the requirements and the things. Like, hey, here you go. You have opened up your heart to me, security, right? And so now I'm going to give you all the security things you've ever wanted, right? And then you're going to train them. You're going to teach them how to do it well. You're going to show them what good security looks like. And so now you've scaled security throughout your business. It's no longer centralized to your security team, which, by the way, you are overworked, you're understaffed, and you're burned out. Your teams are going. It's not good. So you need to scale. Everyone wins. Security breaches are kept to a minimum. Impact is lessened, and it's just so many things. I wish more people could see it.
So I think the big takeaway for me and this conversation, Naomi, and I think it's wonderful, and I mean this sincerely, it's, to really, love each other, right? Love our neighbors, love our colleagues. And, it's a funny word, isn't it? Because, I love my wife and I love ice cream, and I'm saying I'm going to love my colleagues. Sometimes, or at least for me personally, growing up, the word love was synonymous with weakness in a certain sense, right? With kind of fluffy, huggy stuff, right? And, being in the reserve forces, being a police cadet, being in cybersecurity, and having to aggressively push back against threat actors, where's the love in that? Love actually is probably one of the hardest things for us to do. Right, for me to stand vulnerably as a man, as a human being, and say, I want to treat you, a colleague, another person, with love and respect, not regardless of your behavior, but regardless of what your ego is showing me. That's a really hard thing to do. And I think my communication would improve. I mean, people know when you're coming from love, don't they? So that's a huge key for our Hitting the Keynote podcast here, right? Is speaking from a heart of love and vulnerability and strength. Yeah.
And I wish more leaders could do that.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
Not just security leaders, just leaders.
All leaders. Exactly. It doesn't mean weak. It doesn't mean get walked over.
No, it doesn't.
There's so much strength and fierceness in that kind of love. Naomi, thank you for being on this show. If anybody has any follow-up questions, which socials can they get hold of you on? Is it preferred on LinkedIn? Or?
Yes, my DMs are open on LinkedIn and Twitter. You can follow me on I Need More Cyber. That is my joke. It's like I need more cowbell, but I need more cyber. Right. So I'm on Twitter. I need more cyber. And then on LinkedIn, I'm just Naomi Buckwalter, and I am smiling like this. That's me.
There you go. They'll find you. Okay, fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching our show. Naomi, thank you for being an amazing guest. Let's remember to go forward in love, everybody.
Thank you, Eddie.
All right, epic.
Bye, everyone.
All right, bye-bye.